My name is Katie Camp, and I'm one of the children's librarians at the Lexington Public Library. I work at the Tate's Creek branch, and I like to read teen fiction. All of the books that I'm going to talk about today have been published within the last year. First, I'm going to talk to you about Allegiant. You may have heard there's a little movie that's coming out about the first book in this particular series. This is the third book in the trilogy, and I do believe Miss Veronica Roth will actually be stopping with the third book in the trilogy. That doesn't always happen. If you haven't read any of them yet, you'll be excited to know that this is one of the great follow-ups to a Hunger Games type book. It's very dystopian in nature. In this particular society, everyone has their own faction that they belong to. Either you are dauntless and you are very brave and fearless, or you are abnegation and you're a more selfless kind of person, or you're erudite and you value intelligence above all things. Not all of these things actually work very well together, thus the problems in this futuristic society. In this third book in the series, the main characters have escaped from the hemmed-in city of Chicago, and they have traveled to the outside world where they find that they are actually part of a grand experiment. I just finished this a couple of days ago, and I gotta say, I was a little surprised at the ending, and thought it was pretty impressive that Miss Roth decided to go there. This is Allegiant by Veronica Roth. The first two in the series are Divergent and Insurgent, and then Allegiant, of course, is the third. This next book is The Program by Suzanne Young. It's a dystopian look at what we do in order to cure a suicide epidemic. In this particular world, suicide has become a rampant thing in lives of teenagers, and there is a particular program in order to cure kids of their depression. Unfortunately, by curing them, it also basically means stripping them bare of emotion and their previous lives. And Sloane and her boyfriend James are trying at all costs to avoid the program. And then James becomes depressed and is taken into the program. And of course, Sloane is doing everything that she possibly can in order to avoid the same fate herself. It doesn't work so well for her, as usually the case is. So this is The Program by Suzanne Young. It is the first in a series, and it was one of the best dystopias I read this year. This is The Madness Underneath by Maureen Johnson. It's the sequel to The Name of the Star. It's the second in the Shades of London series. In The Name of the Star, Rory moved to London and had an excellent across-the-pond experience, and then saw ghosts, specifically Jack the Ripper's copycat killer. You know, fun. In her travels, she of course meets up with the ghost hunting police, and she's back for more in the sequel. She had gone away for a little while to heal and to recuperate from her experiences, but she's missing London, and of course, most of all she misses her police friends who also are hunting the ghostly killers. I have to say, the ending of the book left me a little startled, and I don't know, Miss Maureen Johnson and I might have to have a talk, but I'm sure that there will be more in the series, and so maybe she will make it a little easier for me to handle what happened at the end. It wasn't gruesome or gory, and it's not inappropriate for a teenage audience. It was just tragic, I have to say. The next books I will talk to you about are two books that go together, Boxers and Saints. They are actually one complete story told in two different volumes. It's Jean Luen Yang, and they're a graphic novel, both of them. If you're looking for a fast read, if you're looking for something on the Boxer Rebellion, if you are wanting something about war, if you're wanting something about how we treat others in society, these are your books. The first one deals with Little Bao, whose country, China, is being overrun by foreigners. He, of course, sees the atrocities that some of them are committing in the name of religion, specifically Christian religion, and he wants to do everything that he can to stop it. he, of course, is right. He wants to fight for his country, and there's a little bit of magical realism going on here. He summons the old gods, and he turns into an operatic character and kills his enemies. You know, it happens. He, of course, is completely in the right. The people that have infiltrated his country are doing horrible things, and they should be stopped. However, this one is Saints. It's the sequel. You have to read Boxers first, otherwise Saints really won't make a whole lot of sense. And you should read Saints, even though it does seem that Boxers actually is a complete story. There's a little bit more in this one. Saints tells the story of Vibiana, whose family treats her horribly, whose village treats her horribly. But the Christian missionaries, they're good to her. They're really good to her. In fact, she sees all the good that they can do, and she sees the ill that her own society is doing. So she is in the right in wanting to fight for her country and for religious freedom. So both of them are completely correct in their beliefs. However, their beliefs clash. Boxers and Saints, it actually was one of the National Book Award finalists this year. And he is the winner of the Michael L. Prince Award, which is for American-born Chinese, which is the award to excellence in teen fiction. I highly recommend these. They're even though it's about the Boxer Rebellion and is perhaps a little inaccessible to a regular modern-day audience, they're such an interesting read. And I think that if you want to have any information about any war and the fact that both parties are always in the right, this is the series for you. This is Relish by Lucy Nisley. The K is silent, of course. And it is a graphic novel all about her life in food. You will probably be a little hungry by the time you're finished with this. It's her love story to growing up with a chef of a mother and a gourmet father, and her excursions through eating, sometimes around the world, sometimes at home, sometimes McDonald's. Even though with gourmet parents, she still sometimes just really enjoyed a really trashy, salty fry. It's just a fun, quick read, and really, you'll be hungry by the end of it. She does have recipes inside, so if you get really that hungry, you can go ahead and make yourself some food. This is nonfiction, but we shelve it in our graphic novel section because it's her memoir of being a foodie, and it goes through most of her childhood and teenage experiences, and it's just she is quite obviously in love with, well, all things food. This is The Bitter Kingdom by Ray Carson. It's the third in the trilogy of the Girl of Fire and Thorns. The Girl of Fire and Thorns is the first, The Crown of Embers is the second, and then The Bitter Kingdom is the third. These are all fantasy novels, and they're just excellent. I'd recommend them to anyone. In this one, Elisa, who has started in the first book as a plump and pampered and indecisive and just sweet and smart, but not very effective queen-to-be, has completely transformed herself into a sorcerer queen, and she is powerful but also just and good. And this one follows her journey to the kingdom that has been attacking hers and who has kidnapped her love, the commander of the guard. And yet, the other kingdom is somewhat in the right. And if you like politics, if you like a good epic fantasy, this is going to be the one for you. I just found that she has a couple of companion stories. I don't even know if they're long enough to be novellas. They are not in book print, but we have them available through the Lexington Public Library website. They are The Shadow Cats, The Shattered Mountain, and The King's Guard, and all of them are available for ebook download. And they follow the different characters. They do not follow Elisa, but they follow Elodia, her older sister, Mara, who ends up being her queen's maid, and Hector, of course, the commander of the guard. And they are prequels, essentially, to these particular stories. And they are just as great and fun and interesting. These are very well fleshed out characters. You won't find very many plot holes in this particular series. It is truly an excellent high fantasy. This is, to be perfectly honest, by Sonia Sones, and it is a novel in verse, which basically means it's a bunch of poems. If you ask me, usually poetry is not my thing, but this is such a prosaic read, and it really is just a quick read, and she writes pretty well, I have to say. This is a book about Colette, and on the jacket cover it says, "My name is Colette. This book is about me. Who am I? To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure exactly who I am. I guess you could say I'm the 15-year-old daughter of an annoyingly famous movie star. Or maybe I'm the 18-year-old daughter of a famous movie star stand-in. Or maybe I'm the 1,000-year-old daughter of a vampire. Having trouble guessing which one of these stories is true? Join the club. My friends have a joke about me. How can you tell if Colette is lying? Her mouth is open." And it's the story of Colette kind of finding herself and telling horrible, horrible lies and getting away with it and meeting a guy and finding that perhaps her lies are going to get her in more trouble. And maybe she's not the only one being untruthful. It's I would say this is definitely very realistic fiction. Of course, because it's in verse, it's a thick read, but it's really fast. And even though she's completely, totally a liar, I absolutely loved Colette. This is To Be Perfectly Honest. This is Poison by Bridget Zinn. And I hate to tell you, but if you really like this one and want to read another of hers, this is it. This is all you get. Unfortunately, Ms. Zinn died tragically young, and this was her only book. She even died before it was published. It was kind of a labor of love for her husband and publisher to get it sent through after her death. But it was such a fun read. It's following Kyra, who is a potioner and who tried to kill the princess, who happened to be her best friend. Yay. But she did it because there was something corrupt going on. So there really was a good reason for it. And of course, now she's on the lam and is being hunted by the royal guard, and she's kind of in a spot of big trouble. There is a pig involved, and that sounds very cutesy, but it's actually ends up being kind of fun, and you grow to love the pig. Who knew? And of course, there is an adventurer who tags along with her, who ends up being somewhat of a romantic interest. Of course, she fights it the entire way. But this is just a fun fantasy romp, and if you want something that was just an enjoyable read, Poison is going to be the one for you. This is The Art of Wishing by Lindsay Ribar. And I categorize this as a realistic fiction, except there's a genie involved. So not quite completely realistic. Although the setting is very real, it's set in a regular high school. It's not entirely fantasy, although there's a genie involved. I don't think that you usually see genies in regular life. Margot, of course, is the main character, and she's a smart student. She's a good kid. She is probably destined to get the lead in the play because she's worked hard for it and really honestly deserves it, and then she doesn't. And then she finds a ring, and attached to that ring just so happens to be Oliver, her genie. And of course, Margot should be getting the 3 wishes and then going on with her life, and everything should be fine and dandy until she finds out that Oliver is kind of on the run himself and is trying to avoid his own murder. So there's a little bit of adventure, there's definitely a lot of realism, there's a little bit of a genie, there's a lot of romance. It was a fun read, and it is most likely the start in a series, although you could probably read it as a standalone And yeah, it was an enjoyable, fun read. And it's The Art of Wishing. And yes, there is a guitar that features. This is The Caged Graves by Diane K. Salerni. And it is based on an actual caged grave. There are a couple of graves that are surrounded by a cage. And really, Miss Salerni did her research. No one quite knows why. And so she wrote a book about it, explaining why the graves are in the cage. And it's a really interesting, it's a historical fiction book. It follows the Verity Boone, who has come back to Catawissa after the war between the states, and she's been living with her mother's family. But she's come home in order to marry a local farmer, and he's a nice guy. He's really upstanding and everything. But then she sees her mother's grave that is surrounded by a cage, and she wants to know why, and no one will tell her. And there are some allusions to perhaps witchcraft that went on, or perhaps she was involved in something that she should not have been. Maybe there was buried treasure. I can't tell you, because then you will have read the book without actually having read the book. You should go read the book. It's The Caged Graves by Diane K. Salerni. This is Boston Jackie by L.A. Meyer. It is the 11th book, 11th, in his Bloody Jack series. If you've read any of them, and you should go drop everything right now and read them, because they are fun and full of hijinks and high adventure and a little bit of mayhem and probably some kissing. But maybe not more than that. I don't know. They surround the character of Mary Jackie Faber, who was a London street urchin and decided that perhaps that was not the life for her, and decided to disguise herself as a ship's boy and sneak aboard a ship and set sail for high seas and adventure. And she ended up becoming a pirate and a lady and going to boarding school and traveling around the world. And in one of the books, she meets Napoleon. It's fiction, so he has a certain license to be able to set her in situations which most likely most people would have never ever found themselves in. In this one, she's back in Boston, which is kind of her home away from home. She really dearly loves Boston, and there are different gangs of folk who are fire insurance. Of course, if you pay them, they will make sure that your house doesn't get set on fire. If you don't pay them, they'll most likely make sure your house gets set on fire. And of course, she's embroiled in all of that. And her long-lost love, Jamie Fletcher, who has had his adventures of his own, and they are constantly being separated. He's in Boston too, but under disguise. And he spends most of the book trying to determine whether or not he can forgive Jackie for kissing other men and having other dalliances. Of course, it doesn't end with them together again. You have to wait for the next book, which will be number 12 in the series. This is Boston Jackie by L.A. Meyer. This is Out of the Easy. It's by Ruda Sepetys. I'm not entirely certain if that's pronounced correctly, but it is fantastic. It's historical fiction. It's set in the French Quarter in Louisiana in the 1950s, and Josie Moraine is the main character. She is the daughter of a well-known prostitute at a brothel, but she so much wants for that to be part of her history and not part of her current life. And so she's doing everything that she can in order to get herself out of New Orleans and go off to college someplace where she can make a life for herself that is new, until she becomes embroiled in a murder investigation for someone who visited the bookshop where she works, and he ends up dead. And his watch ends up in her mother's room. There is mystery, there's a little bit of intrigue, there are completely enjoyable characters who really love each other. The Madam of the brothel is one of Josie's biggest protectors, even though her mother is certainly not. Her mother is just a flighty, horrible character who hooks up with the mob goon who kind of wants to take Josie down. And things do not turn out quite the way that Josie had hoped or anticipated, but they certainly end up better for her than being just the daughter of a prostitute at a brothel in New Orleans. Thank you so much for watching. All of these books are available at the Lexington Public Library. You can look for them online or in the branches. Some of them are going to have more reserves than others. I'm looking at you, Allegiant. But they are still available for you to check out.